And in 1995, I was in a psychiatric institution with major anxiety disorder, panic disorder, PTSD, and depression. So welcome to the conference. I'm so happy you're here.
And so I don't mean to be flip, I really don't, but it's my story and I'm not ashamed, I'm not embarrassed. It's why I'm here with you today.
I am Tammy West, and that is my story. Welcome to Consider Yourself Hugged, a place to find comfort and support as you navigate your mental and emotional well-being. So sit back and relax, unless you're driving, and get ready for this week's hug. Yay, you came back. I was thinking after Michelle and I recorded last week that was kind of a really deep, I don't know. I was like, was it a TMI episode? I don't know. If you haven't listened, I will put a link in this week's show notes, but I wanted to go back to some of the things we talked about. So last week we brought the brand new season back and Michelle was with me and she is going to be with me more. I'm not sure exactly. We don't have a plan, but she will be. And we talked about this concept of holistic mental health. And I shared and Michelle shared that we've both had some difficulties over the past few months. I am such an open book. I probably do share too much, but I did. I just shared that I was really struggling. Like medication, I talked a lot about that. So go back and listen. I'm not going to rehash all that. But the 5 things that we talked about, I'm going to focus on one of them. But let me remind you, I'm going to be looking a lot at my notes today because I have a lot of things to talk to you about. But I started with like this step-by-step plan for holistic mental health with medical, get yourself checked out medically. And the second was to assess your life and look at what's going on and try to figure out what is really hindering your mental health. The third thing was making self-care choices. And I talked about this concept of for some, for others, for you. Like for some people, self-care choices might be all they need to really get back on track with mental illness. For others, they may need more than that, which is going to be our next step in a minute. And then for you, that you have to figure out what's best for you and say it to yourself too, right? Like for some, for others, for me. So that was third was self-care choices. Sometimes that gets people right back on track. Fourth is professional care. And then fifth, we talked about the role of medication. So I've done all of these things. Medication is part of my holistic choice currently, but I want to back up to the middle one, and that is and professional care, all the things. But what I want to talk about today falls in the realm of self-care choices. So during this whole journey that I've been sharing with you forever, but especially over the past couple of months, I wanted to keep trying. My husband said something interesting to me the other day. I was telling him about a podcast and he said, do you ever just like when you're on your walks or when you're just like hanging out alone, do you ever just like not listen to something or read something or do something? And I thought it was really an interesting question. My initial reaction was to default to, oh, is that wrong? I do teach like mindfulness and should I be? I mean, I did all of that. And then I was like, well, going back to the self-care choices, I really am trying to like make good choices. I've said this for years. My genetics are terrible. You know, probably the story of my mom and my dad and all my family struggles. And so I've mentioned before that I will probably always have to make good choices. So I was like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I love to listen to good podcasts, to listen to books, to read books. I just do. So I'm not going to beat myself up about that. But I kept getting this ad on Facebook. A couple months ago, I kept getting this ad about becoming a positive psychology coach. And it just kept, coming and coming and coming. And back in 2006, you may have heard me talk about the formula for happiness before. It's Dr. Ed Diener, and he works in the field of positive psychology. And I send out self-assessments all the time. Martin Seligman, who talks about subjective well-being. So when it kept coming back to me and back to me, finally I was like, I need to check this out. So I paid for it and I downloaded it, and it's 10 modules. And so I've been working through it. And through that, I've discovered a lot of things. I don't know if I'm ever going to actually do the positive psychology coaching with clients. I don't know. I haven't really done coaching. I mainly do speaking and the podcasts and training and workshops and things like that. But I knew it would be great for me to work through it. So then last week, when we did this episode on holistic mental health, I was like, wait a minute, I want to do it with you. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this coaching module. I haven't done them all. I've read through 7 of them, maybe 8. The first one I worked through a little bit, but the other ones I've just read. I've learned a lot already, but I thought I want to do it with you because that'll be like twofold. First of all, it's going to help me learn it more, work through it, do the activities. And second of all, it's going to help you. And I mean, it's free. I'm not going to charge you anything. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start today and go through the introduction, which is module 1. And in the show notes, I'm going to put an activity sheet. So, obviously you might be listening to this while you're driving or walking, and you can think through the things that I'm asking you, but then you can go into the show notes and download the PDF document. It'll have at least one link in there because I found an amazing app that I cannot wait to tell you about. So my point is, going back to last week's episode, medically, I keep up with my checkups, assessing my life. Yeah, I'm doing that every second of every day. And at some point, I'm going to have something to tell you about a book that I've been reading about chatter inside of your mind and trying to figure out, all of that. So, constant self assessment, self care choices. I'm doing that, and we're going to do that together. Professional care, getting back into counseling, and then medication, which is currently a part of my world. So you're going to see me looking a lot at my notes. I have a lot of things that I'm going to read to you today, but we are now going to jump into the world of positive psychology. I mean, how can it not be good? It has the word positive in it. And if you do, I did a Google search. So the beginning coach thing told me, like, if you did a Google search, and instead of paying attention to their figure, I just did my own and I put it in quotation marks. So I did a Google search on the field of positive psychology, and it gave me 22,600,000 results. And it's become a really popular thing over the past 10 or 15 years. So you might have heard of it. What makes it different than some other, and I'm sorry you're hearing all my, forgot to turn off, anyway, forgot to turn off all my dings. What makes it different than some other fields of just, I don't know, looking at things in a positive way or trying to learn and grow is that it is science based. So it's based on theories, it's based on studies, and I'm going to go all through those things with you. So here is the definition. Positive psychology studies what gives meaning to our lives. It empowers us to make our lives purposeful, happy, and well-rounded on a daily basis. So it was found in 1998. And I think that article that I first read on an airplane, it was actually an airline that doesn't even exist anymore, like Northwest Airlines or one of those things. And they had a magazine, like a physical magazine. I think it was in 2006 is when I first was introduced to this field. So it was founded by Martin Seligman, who I think worked with Ed Diener back in 1998. And so it's been a while, but it's become a really popular field. So it studies what makes our lives like satisfying, our sense of well-being. But it's based on measurable results, statistics, studies, all of those things. So overall, it's based on 5 pillars of your life. Now, I will tell you that the way that this coaching module is organized is not like, I'm going to use your feedback and also the way that I work through it, probably to tweak it a little bit, because I don't love the way that it's set up. You know how when, like, if you're creating something in your mind, it makes perfect sense, but then when other people look at it, it doesn't always make great sense for them. So, and I have perfect leeway here to do whatever I want. But the way that the modules, I think, are supposed to be divided is based on these 5 pillars, but it's not going to exactly work out that way. But here are the 5 pillars that we can use to make our lives better, like every single day. Number one is positive emotions. How often are you feeling those versus negative emotions? Number two, engagement, like engagement with the world. How are you doing engaging with the world around you? It could be, well, we'll talk about it. Number three, interpersonal relationships. That could be romantic, family, friends, colleagues. Number four, the meaning and purpose of life. And number five, our accomplishments. So what it's not asking questions like, what's the matter with me? What's causing me problems and making me unhappy? What's preventing me from being a well-rounded person? So it's not asking those questions. The cool thing, and it talks about this at some point in the module, is that it's not trying to replace traditional, like classical psychology. If you go to a classical psychologist, they're going to ask questions like, how do I find out what's not working and let go of that to ease someone's suffering? But positive psychology is asking what is working to try to improve someone's life. So it's not trying to replace it, but it's a complement, because for the longest time, there was no field that was focusing on the good things that were happening in life. So the question that positive psychology is asking is, what is going well for you? So that's how those two can complement each other and hopefully like build a better human experience. Well, that's what I'm hoping for. So I'm doing this completely, well, not completely, mostly selfishly. Is that terrible to say to you as you're listening? I want to help you, but I really want to learn and grow and just get inside of this brain of mine and just try to figure out what is going on. So, having said all that, introduced you to the field, let's go into our first activity. So, in your activity sheet that you'll find in the show notes, it'll be broken down. It'll have like our first section that we're doing right now is the introduction. And so, our first activity under the introduction is, and it'll be called putting into practice, and it's recognition and awareness. So I'm going to read to you what it is I want you to do. Um, the first exercise aims to familiarize. Let me start all over. This first exercise aims to familiarize, is that it? Yeah. You with internal listening. So being able to tune in with your emotional state in the moment is the basis of positive psychology, figuring out what you're feeling. I want you to aim to repeat this exercise every day before we come back together. Ideally, it would be every day. Now, I have three options for you to do that. One of them is an app that I love. I just can't wait to introduce it to you, but try to do this every day, but don't beat yourself up if it doesn't work. So here's what I want you to do. Without being analytical or judgmental, take a pen and a piece of paper, or a pen and, well, we'll come, or the app, and write down how you feel right now. So, yeah, if you're walking or driving, just think about it. Like, how do you feel right now? I think our emotional language is so like stunted. And this is what I'm going to love about sharing this app with you, that we usually only think about some basic emotions, right? Happy, sad, angry, fearful, I don't know, jealous. But it's not a very extensive vocabulary. That's where the app is going to come in. All right. So writing down or thinking how you feel right now, and maybe writing a few words or sentences about your feelings, your sensations, your emotions. Go into as much or as little detail as you want to. It could be, okay, so I'm going to start right now telling you what I would write. I'm feeling excited and hopeful because right now I'm trying to learn and grow, and I'm sharing this experience with you. Even though I don't see you face to face, I feel like we're connected. And so I'm feeling very energized and hopeful. Now, if you're not, like, don't lie. Just don't lie. Put down truly, truly what you're feeling. In your activity sheet, I'm sorry if I keep doing the throat clearing thing. I've had a cold for like a month. Maybe it's allergies. So I have three options that I think will work for you that I put on your activity sheet. Number one is if you love like really cutesy journals, um, man or woman, I don't know if you're really creative, find a fun journal to write in, stickers, whatever. That's one option. The second option is to use the activity sheet as a workbook, because then you can keep everything in the same place, print it out, and I gave you some spaces that you can write in. I started with Wednesday just because that's when the episode drops. So I have Wednesday through Tuesday, like before we come back together. But I am recommending this app called How We Feel. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm actually going to pull it up for you. And it looks, the little icon, well, sorry, is a little heart. But what happens when you open up How We Feel or How You Feel? Yeah, sorry, there we go. So it says tap the color that best describes you, and it has high energy, unpleasant is red, high energy, pleasant is yellow, low energy, unpleasant is blue, and low energy, pleasant is green. I'm going to take that away for a minute because it's very blurry. There's a link in the app. I'm sorry, there's a link in the activity sheet and a screenshot of what it looks like if you go to it on your computer. So I'm putting high energy, pleasant, but what I really want you to see is, and if you're not on YouTube, I'll just explain it to you. There are probably, I should really count them. Let's see. Let's say that's 30. So I'm going to say there's at least 100, if not more, emotions. And it's things like, go back to it again. So high energy, unpleasant would be things like angry, anxious, furious, annoyed, pressured, restless. Low energy, unpleasant would be hopeless, lost, disappointed, meh, sad. All right, let's do high energy, pleasant, exhilarated, thrilled, motivated, optimistic, playful. Low energy, pleasant. I hope I'm saying this right. Chill, peaceful, safe, blessed. And then the next thing that you do, so if you're watching, I'll show this to you. If you're not, then it takes you and it asks you to, I'm sorry, I'm not going to show it to you because it's just too blurry. But the next thing you can do is add a journal entry. So I'm recommending this app for activity number 1 and also for activity number 2. Add a journal entry, and then it asks, what are you doing? And you can add however many things you want if you do things regularly. Like I have morning time alone, walking, praying, in the car, lunch, and then it has who are you with? And I have by myself, I have Tim, pets, coworkers, and then where are you? And then you check in. It takes like 2 minutes. You can even speak it into your phone if you don't want to type. So I'm sure I'm pushing that one a little bit more than the others, but you truly do whatever works for you. As long as, and let me go back to where we were. Okay. So writing down the emotion that you're feeling, maybe the sensation you're feeling and your emotions, allowing yourself to go into as much detail or as little detail as you want to. So that's the introduction. Now let's move into our second section, which is timeframes. And I love this because I feel like sometimes when I'm talking about mental health, emotion, stress, is it the phrase splitting hairs or being too picky? But it's really important that when we recognize this concept of well-being and happiness, that we look at it across our lifespans. So we're going to look at, just quickly, you're going to look at 3 time frames. We're going to look at the past. And according to Seligman and positive psychologists, the past is what has to do with your well-being and your satisfaction because you're taking the things that you've done and it's building on how you're feeling overall about your life. So the past. The present is what we would refer to as happiness. Like, how am I feeling right in the moment? And then the future is what we look at when we think about hope and optimism. So these 3 things taken together, hopefully the actions that we take and the self-assessment that we do are going to help improve our happiness and well-being overall. So here we go. Next activity. Again, it is in your, the show notes. The activity sheet is in your show notes. This one, like the app that I gave you, I think some of these can do well writing in that app and keeping track of it that way. but some of them not. So I'm just going to not talk about the app anymore. And if you feel like you can incorporate it, if it's something you really like, then do that. Otherwise, just do what we talked about before. If you have the really pretty journal or a boring journal or a notepad, or you just want to do it on here, you'll have plenty of space on the activity sheet. So here are 3 questions, and you really only need to answer these, I think, once before our time together. Here they are. Again, if you're walking, driving, just think about it. Question 1. Over the last few days, think of the situations that gave you the most satisfaction and sense of well-being. For example, this could be the satisfaction you felt after your running or yoga or maybe painting. Or when I think about what gives me the most satisfaction, it's pretty easy for me, and I can look at the emotions app and actually tell, but it's when I walk in the morning. I take Charlie for a walk every single morning, unless it's raining or I have to leave super early. We walk early, like 6:30 every morning. And typically what I do is I walk, I listen to, I mean, on my walk, I listen to my Bible, pray, actually reverse, pray, listen to my Bible, and then I do something else, whether it's sometimes I listen to a podcast, sometimes I listen to a book. For a while, I was using the autobiographer app that my son developed, which if you didn't read my blog a couple of times ago, I'll put a link to it so you can see what that's all about. And every single time when I check in, I I just I feel happy, I feel inspired. So that's my activity. So that's the first question. The second question, right now, how do you feel? And happy, stressed, anxious, tired, elated, excited, hopeful, meh, pleasant, calm. Just use an adjective and describe how you feel here and now in the present moment. The third question, what action, activity, or event do you have coming up that you are already feeling happy and enthusiastic just by thinking about it? So it could be you have a dinner coming up, you have a movie that you have a date, you're doing blah, blah. Right now, for me, I am leaving in a few days to go first to Pennsylvania to speak at a child nutrition event. And then I'm going to Destin to speak at a women's conference. And then my husband is driving down to Destin, and we're going to spend an extra night. So he's going to spend the first night with me. I speak the next day. We're spending an extra night, and then driving home the next day. And so that makes me feel happy. That makes me look forward to it. And that's it. That's all you have to do for now. Now, try to remember, this is just our first module. So all of this is really just laying the groundwork, and we're going to delve deeper into it later. Done our introduction. We've done the concept of time. Now let's do the concept of happiness, because I did mention happiness. And Seligman was interested in the theory of happiness, and he talked a lot about it in the world of positive psychology. And he believed happiness was connected to 3 types of experiences. First, a nice, pleasant life, which I'm going to read what he said about that. Second, an engaged life. And third, an interesting life full of meaning. So let me read the examples that he gives for these 3. So a nice, pleasant life is all about feeling positive and pleasant emotions frequently in daily life. So remember, like in the moment, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling pleasant, positive, whatever. For example, the enjoyment you experience through eating homemade ice cream. It's just the simple pleasures of life, a nice, pleasant life. The second part of it, but if we only are, it might be sitting on the porch, drinking lemonade, it's just pleasant. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It's just very simple activities. The second is an engaged life. And he talks a lot about this in the concept of what he calls flow. So this says that people are happiest when they live in a state known as the flow, which is being entirely immersed in an activity. So it's feeling this energetic concentration, full of involvement, full of pleasure. It's sort of like artists get lost in their work. Like my husband, who's a photographer, he can sit in there and edit his horse and landscape pictures for hours. He just gets lost. And suddenly he'll say, "What? It's 6 o'clock," or whatever. He just gets completely lost in it. It could be while you're, you know, working. It could just be your work. It could be while you are doing spiritual activities. It could be while you're dancing or any activity where you are immersed fully in it. And so he calls that flow. And he says that for a sense of flow, we need to use our strengths of character to set challenges for ourselves. I'm not sure I totally got this yet, but the next module will go a little bit further with it. but look at how that's different from a pleasant life. An engaged life requires a little bit more effort. And then the last one is an interesting life full of meaning. So he says, like, if we are always in the flow, it can feel a little mindless and repetitive and not necessarily feel like it has a lot of meaning. And so to have a sense of meaning, then he talks about an engagement that's like bigger than ourselves. So it could be, for me, it's religion, Christianity, spirituality. It could be religion, politics, could be charity, could be any of those things. So now let's put this into practice. Go back to your activity sheet or just think if you're walking or driving. We want to raise awareness about these three aspects of life. So here are your three questions. And this is another one you can just do once before you come back together next time. First, name an activity that you like to do that gives you positive feelings. For me, it's taking a walk. It's actually watching shows with Tim. It's eating my boom chicka pop with M&Ms at the bottom, just gives me positive feelings. The second question, name an activity or pastime that gives you a sense of flow. Now, I wish I could say it was like writing my book, like writing the stress club, that I was so engaged, but honestly, I really don't love to write. But when I'm planning the course that I'm going to do, and I'm on AI and I'm generating images and I'm doing outlines and then I'm thinking of stories, I can absolutely get lost in that. I'm totally in the flow. So that requires more energy than eating my boom chicka pop, watching a show, or taking a walk. And then the last one's pretty easy for me. Name an activity where you feel engaged and have a sense of purpose. And for me, that's God. You know, that's Jesus. That's praying. That's listening to my Bible. That's being in church. And the interesting thing is, I've been working back in the media booth at our church now for, gosh, I don't even know. I'm terrible with time. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 20 years. I don't know, between 6 months and a year, probably. But when I'm back there, I enjoy it even more because I get to feel like I still get to hear the sermon and I get to worship, but I get to feel like I'm serving, and the camaraderie back there with all the media people is just amazing. And so it gives me, I feel like there's flow, there's pleasant life. I feel like all of that is engaged in that. So if you have an activity like that, fabulous. And our last section and activity for this module is the concept of well-being. So we did the introduction. We talked about the concept of time, the concept of happiness. Now let's talk about the concept of well-being. So unlike just happiness, like in the moment, this concept encourages the pursuit of a long-term sense of well-being rather than just short-term gratification. There are a lot of worthwhile pursuits in life that don't bring us happiness right away. I'm going to go right back to writing that book. When I talk about not liking to write, occasionally someone will say, you need to tell yourself you like to write. I'm like, well, I can tell myself all day long, but I don't. So it doesn't bring me happiness to write. It just doesn't. And I don't think that it has to. But long term, the gratification and the well-being from writing that book to help people is huge. So it's that kind of thing, that not every little thing that we do gives us happiness in the moment. So going back to those 5 pillars. So Seligman talks about 5 factors that influence well-being. And these are really what he calls the 5 pillars of positive psychology. Do you remember what they are? Okay, say them with me. I don't have them memorized yet, so I have to read them. Positive emotions, engagement with life or people, positive human relationships, a meaning or purpose to life, and accomplishments. So, yeah, so we'll cut all that part out. So he This is the example that I want to read to you that was given to me in this module. All right, here we go. Your well-being depends on 5 factors overall. So let me read you this little paragraph that has them all in there with some of them have little examples. So your well-being depends on 5 factors. The first relates to your positive emotions. This could be the happiness you felt when your spouse brought you flowers, or the gratitude you felt towards your best friend when they helped you move into a new home. All of these emotions contribute to your overall sense of well-being. That makes sense, right? So that's happiness in the moment, but it still contributes to your overall sense of well-being. The second is your overall engagement with your surroundings. There's no examples here, but we've talked about that before. Engagement with your surroundings, it could be positive, it could be being in a club or part of a family, part of a community. It can even be like being involved in your church, which is kind of separate from the spiritual bigger meaning than you, if that makes sense. Hopefully you're seeing some overlap here. The third is your relationships with people, significant other, your children, your coworkers, again, people at school, at church. It's a little bit interwoven, but it's different, right? Like the positive emotions come from something like let me go back. So positive emotions can come for something to happen with those people. The engagement with life could be with those people, but it's just overall being engaged, not like a specific thing, or engagement with a church, but that's different than the spiritual part of it. Positive human relationships, just because you're engaged with people doesn't mean you have like relationships with those people. So relationships would be like closer, family, friends, people you really do spend time with. No, what are we missing? The fourth is the meaning of your life. It could be your projects, your goals, the things that you want to accomplish, contributing to other people's happiness. And then the last is achieving objectives. So all of our work together involves these 5 points. So now let's do an activity. This is the last activity for this module. And we're going to just do um, positive emotions. And then the rest of them, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I told you I'm kind of learning with you, and I'm not sure I love how all of this is organized. I think I told you that we're going to build on those 5 pillars, sort of. But for now, we are going to focus for a minute on positive emotions. You are going to have a list. I'm going to read them to you, but they're going to be in the activity. And your job will be to pick the 3 that you believe, which 3 positive emotions do you believe bring you the most happiness? So let me read them. Joy, recognition or gratitude, serenity, interest or curiosity, hope, pride, fun, inspiration, and love. And I circled. No, I'm not going to tell you what I circled. I don't want to influence you. Okay, that's part of it. Now we're going to go a little bit further because it's not just about recognizing which positive emotions you feel like bring you the most happiness in your life. Now think about the people who make up your close circle of friends and your family. Write down the names of those 3 people or think of them. You have this in your activity sheet. So write down the names of 3 people who bring you the most happiness and feelings of joy. 3 people. And next to their name, write down 3 words or adjectives that describe your relationship with these people or what they bring to you. So the example that's given is you write down, for example, Sarah, and then you write down whatever adjectives. It could be these emotions or it could be something else, but you might write down love, serenity, and joy. So think of 3 people. 3 people. And the last thing, so you identified the emotions, you identified 3 people who bring you positive emotions. And the last thing is to note a long-term objective that motivates you on a daily basis. So it could be being able to run a 10K without stopping, being able to write a book, being able to finish your degree, building a better relationship with your family. It doesn't matter. So that's it, friends. And now I'm just thinking, hang on a minute. So I said that we were just going to focus here on positive emotions, but actually, I think this putting into practice, it was titled Positive Emotions, but I think it goes through all the things, doesn't it? Really, positive emotions, the people who bring those, which is positive or relationships with people. Then it was about a little bit about meaning. Um, then it was a little bit about, yeah. So I mean, it has several things on there. We'll work on it together. But that's it for today. Now, just FYI, you'll have a second document in there. This was part of the coaching thing too. It was 20 inspirational quotes for you to ramp up those positive emotions. So I copied and pasted those into a document, and you have those as well. I thought they were pretty good. Like, let me find one to read to you. Hang on a minute. Let me scroll down here. How about, let's see. Life isn't about waiting until the storms pass, but about learning to dance in the rain. How about that? Or how about accept the present, not the presents like gift. Accept the present, let go of the past, and have confidence in the future. I have to tell you, for years, I'm not like, I haven't been like a motivational quote kind of person. Like, I don't know if it's a cynical part of me or what, but I'm beginning to enjoy that a lot more. So take some of those, put them on go into Canva, build yourself a quote card, put them on social media, whatever you want to do, but they are there for you. Yay! So you did it with me. You did module 1. All right, let me just go through and see if we did everything. So we did our introduction and we did our activity. I told you about using a journal or the worksheets or the app. And the app there's a clickable picture and a link in the notes, and I gave you room to write. So we did the introduction, and then we looked at the concept of time, and you did a couple of things because our sense of well-being goes from past, present, and future. And then we talked about the concept of happiness and what that means, and you did your activity. And we talked about the concept of well-being, and you did your activity. And I gave you the little positive quotes. What'd you think? Okay, you thought it was good. I mean, I know it wasn't exactly, part of this is just us learning together, but I am committed to going back to the holistic mental health. I'm committed to do all that I can do. I mean, I can't do everything, but I'm going to try as hard as I can to live a life where I have the best well-being that I can. God's guiding me down this path, and I hope that you'll stay with me for the whole time. Thank you for joining me. Go to the show notes, download the forms, send me some comments on the show or on Facebook. I told you all during I take time off of the podcast over the summer, but I took time off of everything. So there's not much there on Facebook or in the women's group, a place for women, but I'm working on getting back to that. All of this will be in there. And next time we will do the second module, which at this point I don't have them memorized, so I don't know what it is, but I'm just excited to be with you. So until we're together next time, consider yourself hugged.